Now, as you can see from the clips I've been using, Bruce Timm and his team, the ones responsible for making most of DC's animated adaptations for the last couple decades, are big fans of Hex. He's made 3 appearances in 3 different series, and was the subject of one animated short released along with Batman's Under the Red Hood. Pretty straightforward story. Hex walks into town, he's looking for a guy, and he starts asking questions.
I've seen him.
Talk.
I help you. Will you help me?
What kind of help?
Enough money to leave town.
Got me a little paper route.
By the way, I forgot to mention that Hex is a total pimp. Turns out the whole bar is a front for a racket. The head prostitute seduces some big spender, then kills them for all of their money. Then Lurch and the crazy old prospector here ditch the body. Hex picks up on this and beats the crap out of everyone in the place.
You wouldn't hit a lady.
You ain't no lady.
This went down.
Then after he collects the body, he performs his own brand of justice.
You can't leave me here alone.
You ain't alone, you got plenty of company. You know everybody there.
It's a good, old-school Hex story, but actually his first appearance in an animated series was in the '92 Batman series. It's funny how this one actually really doesn't even feature Batman in it. It's like, man, we want to tell this really good Jonah Hex story, but how the hell are we going to get Batman and him together? Ah, screw it. Who the hell needs Batman? So the episode takes place in a flashback told by Ra's al Ghul, who in this continuity has a magic pool that extends his life, which really doesn't explain how he can recall all the things he was never there for, like Hex walking into town.
You will never learn.
This has got to be one of the most badass openings in the show's history. Now, I was like 6 at the time this aired, so I need to ask, was anyone else wondering what happened to Two-Face and why he was wandering in the desert? Second verse, same as the first. Hex walks into town, he's looking for a bad guy, he meets a girl who leads him to trouble, and gets a little sugar on the side. Then things get weird when Hex finds out that Ra's al Ghul has been building a flying war blimp so he can take over the Old West.
I've told you repeatedly, this is not how I do things.
I beg your pardon, sir. I was hoping to expedite the completion of the airship.
Commendable, but not at the expense of my workforce.
That character and Ra's al Ghul are both voiced by David Warner. I wonder if that means something. The world's greatest detective! By the way, it's about time I mentioned that Hex looks considerably older in this. So, depending on the continuity, this means he's already been to the future and back. That probably explains why he's not too impressed with this. Yeah, but can I play Angry Birds? Hex gets captured, but then breaks free and starts wreaking havoc on the warship.
You! I don't believe it!
Guess I'm just a bad penny.
You cannot defeat me! I am a Heidelberg fencing champion.
My heart saw the flutter.
Pulling a knife. The cause and solution to all of life's problems. So the blimp goes up in another one of those undocumented massive explosions, and Hex brings in his man, who turns out to be the son of Al Ghul. Yes, that is the micro-thin thread attaching Hex to Batman. But you know what? It was a good way to get him on the show without resorting to the silliness of magic or time travel. And we cut to...
June 1879.
I have mentioned how much I hate time travel.
In an episode of Justice League Unlimited, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern follow a time bandit back to the Old West. There, they team up with Jonah Hex and several of DC's forgotten Western heroes to stop a gang from using future technology to turn the West into their own private sandbox. It's hinted that Hex may know about technology and time travel at this point.
Fancy gun belt you got there. I'm thinking you folks are time travelers.
Where would you get a crazy idea like that?
Experience? I've had an interesting life.
But then it's completely verified when he suddenly whips out a bazooka and headshots a giant mech. Where were you keeping that thing?
Shoot, I wanted me one of them fancy ray guns. Ain't dependable. They jam.
But I think the best appearance that sums up all of Hex's traits is an episode of Batman Brave and the Bold. Hex is in debt to an alien named Mungle. Him and his sister, Princess Butterface, run these intergalactic gladiator games called Warworld, and have been using Hex to kidnap aliens.
Now I made good on my word to bring you fighters. It's time for you to keep yours, and send me back to my time.
You're right. But first, one more job. My sister's gladiators have been dominating the games, and there's a warrior who might shift the odds back in my favor.
No, Batman. And Hex is a pretty good choice to go after him. After all, he's defeated both Batman and Superman in alternate timelines. Or is it the same timeline? Yeah, I don't even know anymore.
What does Mongol have on you, Hex? Save my hide. Except in doing it, he yanked me all the way to the future and ain't gonna send me back till I repay my debt.
You know what? Even though Batman's cape turned into a pair of rockets and he was pulled down by a laser whip wielded by a time-traveling cowboy, that crash was still more believable than the one in The Dark Knight. Anyway, Hex turns Bat Hombre over only to find out that Mongol is going back on his word.
You are far too valuable an asset.
He seemed like such a nice giant red-eyed exploiter of misery. While Batman is fighting in the arena, Mongol's sister comes to Hex with a proposition.
Since you've been doing such good work for Mongol, a map to the time tunnel platform and a transceiver you'll need to activate it.
How do I know you're not just full of cow pies like your swindling brother?
Because my motives are entirely selfish.
Don't trust her. She's really granny goodness in disguise. Why else would she be hanging around with these two? But instead, Hex aims to make amends, starting with breaking into the arena and busting Batman loose.
What's he doing there?
Well, what did you expect? Basically, you told him to go get the second most badass superhero ever as reinforcements, and then hand him the key to his getaway, and just hoped that he wouldn't fuck you over. After, I guess what you would call flirting on Apocalypse.
That one's mine. Got a thing for guys with scars.
Sorry.
Batman and Hex come to the holding chambers, which just so happens to be right next to the time machine. How dramatically convenient.
Fry the cell block controls and you'll destroy the time tunnel platform. Hex will never get home.
Go ahead.
So they blow up the time machine, which teleports Mongol and his sister 5 whoopings past a merciless beatdown o'clock. Batman offers to help Hex get back to his own time, but Hex decides to stick around a little longer.
Giddy up.
And there goes a 2 a.m. domestic disturbance waiting to happen. Naturally, when you have a character with such an abundance of badassery, who wouldn't want to see that transferred to the big screen? And you know, I even hear they're making a Green Lantern movie. Jack Black is going to be so awesome in that. And without reviewing the whole movie, let me just highlight why this thing doesn't work. Besides the obvious reasons. Say what you want, at least she didn't straddle a horse with her ass in the air. And you know what? It's not even Fox or the steampunk stuff. Weird technology and floozies have been a big part of Hex for a while now. It's this out-of-nowhere bring the dead to life touch thing he's got. It's like some guy in charge said, well, this is a superhero movie, right? Well, he needs a superpower, right? And Pushing Daisies just so happened to be on. Despite Jonah fighting aliens, robots, and supernatural creatures, he himself didn't have any supernatural or enhanced powers. He didn't need them. That's what was so badass about the character. Really, when you think about it, this is more of a Jonah Hex movie than this. Sure, it's the 80s Jonah Hex, but it's still Hex. And really, that's what it all comes down to. Hex is a survivor, both in his fictional life and his career as a comic book character. He's adapted again and again, and still remains a cult favorite to this day, able to go toe-to-toe with any character in the DC universe. I think I just lost control of my little dipper. I mean, Big Dipper. Big, huge dipper. Biggest dipper of all.
When outlaws ruled the West and fear filled the land, a cry went up for a man with guts to take the West in hand. They needed a man who was brave and true, with justice for all as his aim.
You know what? I'm the hero.